have a Bible, if you'll open your Bible to Genesis chapter 1, where can you go with it? Begin. Genesis chapter 1, probably you can quote it, maybe you can't, but I want to read through this part fairly quickly, just to lay a foundation for what I want to share, what I want to look at. So, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. The evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, 'Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters.' And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. The evening and the morning were the second day." Now, I want to read you something that I wrote. Now, probably most everybody on the earth, pretty much, you know, if there's 7 billion, I'd say probably at least 5 billion of those people, whether they're Buddhist or Hindu, or it doesn't matter what religious persuasion or non-religious persuasion that they have all heard that, simply because of the popularity of this book we call the Bible, this book we've been taught to call the Bible. So it's even popular, or has been read, maybe not popular, but has been read and has been looked at as a historical, literal document for several hundreds of years, possibly as many as 1,800 years, that it's been tried to make into a literal historical document. It never was written that way. It was written, it was documents that were written over a period of almost 2,000 years, called different books. And many books that were looked at 2,000 years ago, 2,300 years ago, were left out of this compilation that we have, that we call the Bible, such in the Protestant community. If you look at it from the Catholic Church, there's what, I think 13 additional books in the Catholic Bible. I believe it's 12, 13, something like that, that are additional books. The Maccabees, Esther's, Solomon, Canticles, gosh, I can't remember. I do have that, but there are a number of them. I can't quote all of them that are there. It seemed like there's a half a dozen or so of those books. And then you have other books that are recognized and are actually, like for instance, the Book of Jasher. A lot of people haven't heard of the Book of Jasher, but the Book of Jasher is quoted several different times in this translation by saying, "Is it not written in the Book of Jasher?" and quotes from it. Plus, this also quotes other books that were a compilation of books that weren't necessarily what you would call from the Jewish community or Hebrew, using Israelitish, using those three terms as synonyms or referring to the same group, people group. Even though those should never be used as synonyms because they are not, but nevertheless that's how they're used from the mass population. And usually that's just out of, we do that, I'm including me in that group, we do that generally out of ignorance, just because we aren't aware of what we're using and how we're using words. And I do that. I'm sure you do that. I use words sometimes not totally familiar with the word and the usage of it out of ignorance. But here's where we're at today. We are at a time in history that is phenomenal. To me, probably one of the most phenomenal times ever to live in history is to live today. Simply because there is a crossing of the ideologies and emerging bridging of the gaps that have divided us from all different groupings, that have divided us from ideologies. There is a bridging of those things. It's taking place. And whether you embrace it or you disembrace it, it's still happening. And so a lot of times this is called awakening, and I agree with that. That's what's happening. People are waking up, they're awakening to the true self, and therefore getting out from under the bondages that we have had through the embracing of certain religious concepts and ideas. So let me just read you this. We are at a time when we must read the Bible the way we are at a time when we must, actually what I should have wrote here, we cannot read the Bible the way we have been taught to read it for 2,000 years. We are at a time that what I just read, you already intuitively, surfacely drew an idea from what I just read. You already seen that in your mind, even though what that said in the language that it's originally intended to convey is not the idea that you got from it. It was not intended to give you the idea that you just got. That's hard. I know that's almost difficult. People would totally question me on it. How could you possibly say that? And I want to show you that. I want to try to show you that. So we're at a time when it's not bad to ask a question. Even if it's a very, very controversial question, that's all the more reason it should be asked. This was drawn and compiled from ancient mystery schools as a compilation of different stories, myths, legends, allegories that were about the mystery of God's temple / tabernacle, which is the physical body. Now what I just said would probably go over the head of the majority of people that exist. It would maybe shoot so far over they wouldn't even have a clue what I just said. So what I just said was that what I read to you is drawn from mystery schools. The mystery schools were called mystery schools because they wrote in a mysterious language, or they wrote in a code. And if they wrote something in a code, it's not that they were trying to hide it from us, it's just the method through which they wrote something. And it would be like if we looked at biology from the standpoint of a scientist or a biologist and looked at it at the language they used to describe it, we wouldn't understand it at all, right? Because it would be too foreign to us. Well, that's the way the Bible is. It is a mystery book about the mystery of the physical body, which is the house God built to live in. So if God lives in the physical body is as God is. Now that's a difficult thing for us to grasp or to put our mind around. And one of the difficulties of it is we've been taught that we're just human. We're going to lay down this physical body. This is true, we are. But while we are in it, we as God are here in it for creative purposes. And we do create. And that's the difficult thing. We think that we just blunder through life and life just happens to me. And some of my luck is bad, and every now and then I might get a $100 ticket at the lottery, but I ain't never going to get the $50 million. I ain't never going to be that lucky. Hello? Now, I don't know what I'm talking about, first off, because I have not ever bought a lottery ticket. Not the first one yet. My dollar is too hard to get than to give it away to somebody hoping I'm going to get 10 back. My grandpa told me that don't happen, so I just took his advice and I just don't buy a lottery ticket. But if you do, and you do get the $40 million, be sure to remember me and your tithe. So I would just be tickled with a tenth of your $40 million, or whatever. The government wants half of it, I just want a tenth, that's all. Okay, well this doesn't, I'm saying it this way, clear, plain, up front, straight up and down. This does not say what we just read thinking that it says, okay? For instance, heaven is not a place out yonder, even though we are constantly taught to call the blue sky heaven. We're constantly taught to call something out yonder, possibly a globe or a ball or a planet, heaven. Those are all religious lies. It's really garbage. And so heaven is not out there according to this wording in Hebrew. And that's what I want you to see. It's not a place that you go to. Nor is earth here according to this code that we just read. And so that's another thing I want us to look at and I want you to listen to. Now here's something I wrote a couple of weeks ago and I want you to listen. To understand the source, there's so many words that we can call God, and God is sometimes a very limited word, because if you use the word God, in religion you usually think of an old man or a male or a father, right? But if you use the word universe, then it gets real cloudy. And a lot of people do use the word universe as a synonym for God. Or if you use the word source, that too is kind of clouded. God is the source of all. Paul calls him that. Or if other words, if you use the word all, that kind of all, that doesn't. Any of these words, it's hard to come up with a good word to try to describe something that can't be described. So, in ancient Hebrew, what they did is they have one word. It's called in. And what in actually means is the vast nothing that is everything. And so Paul said it this way, that God is all and is in all. And so that's all inclusive. So that means there's nothing that is God. Everything is God. Period. People, I had a customer one time, and I love some of these different customers. I tease them and say things to them. I had a customer one time, and she said, "So you think God's in that tree?" I said, "Well, sure, God's in that tree. The very life of the sap that flows up and down the core of that tree to make it live is God." Oh, so they would get kind of excited. I would do that to kick off. So it's hard to come up with a good term. Sometimes I think God is a very loose term, but if I read right here, the very word, in the beginning, God. This particular word right here, Aleph, how do you spell that in Hebrew? I don't forgot here. God, Elohim. It's going. Anyway, it's Elohim. Aleph, Lamid, Hey, Aleph, Lamid, Hey, Mim. That's the Hebrew. There you go. Aleph, Lamid, Hey, Mim. Seems like there's another Yod Mim. There you go. There it is. That's how you spell it. Actually, the word means gods. G-O-D-S. This one is going to give up on me. It actually means gods. And actually, it could slash powers. Okay? So this particular Hebrew glyph is not referring to any one particular person. It's not a person, okay? It's not referring to a person. It's referring to powers, or it's referring to, another word I could put here is energy. I think that's a good word that's used in science, is energy. They realize that everything between the cell is energy, but they don't understand it's there, but it ain't there. Quantum science is beginning to recognize that. So all of these words can be used for the Hebrew in, which is translated Elohim here for the word God. Now, when I read this in English, and you heard it in English, you didn't hear any of the things I just put on the board. You didn't hear any of that. But it's there. It's there. It's there very clear and very plain if you have an eye that can see it. But if you can't, it's not clear at all. To understand this that I just said, God, we must understand the information that introduces us to the concepts and the ideas of this, or God. Concepts and ideas that introduce us to this. See, if we have limited our thinking to say that God is just an old man out there somewhere, and we're just puppets on a string, he's manipulating all of this, we completely will miss it. But that's when we read it with just a surface understanding, or we read it through the eyes of religion that has taught us to read it this way historically or literally, that's what we get. We can't get any of this. So if I read this and I begin to look at that very word God, and I say, wait, this is Elohim. It means the powers. It means the energy, the source. The source of what? The source of all. The source of everything. Where do you trace everything back to? There, in. That's real hard. I know it's hard. This information is and has been given to us for thousands of years by way of stories, allegories, symbols, numbers, and a whole host of other natural, in other words, earthly or material, and astrological, in other words, heavenly or spiritual methods, of which, for the most part, we have lost the understanding of how to read or how to decipher this material. We must open our minds to the point that the temple is up here, the temple, the mind, you can call it the brain or whatever, is open to different thoughts or possibilities than the ones we've entertained. So, okay, let me just read you something here. I want to read from Alvin Boyd Kuhn. This is one of my enjoyed authors. Let's see here, Alvin Boyd Kuhn. After all, religion is what its age-long theological interpretation has represented it to be. In other words, man's spiritual relation to God. That is, to the power that links him to the orders of life. But theology has rendered this true definition practically impotent. I hope y'all can hear this. Has falsified and distorted the reference and eventually the meaning by localizing the God in a cosmic heaven. Did you get that? That's what religion's done. They have localized God in a place cosmically known as heaven. That's Joe. They distorted all this information to do that. Falsified and distorted the reference, eventually the meaning, by localizing the God in a cosmic place, heaven. Instead of in man himself. Did you hear the difference? Religion has told you and me about this power, this energy, this God, made it a man, put it out there somewhere in heaven. Instead of what the information tells us, that this power, this source, this God, this energy is in man himself. Now, this diversion of thought and aspiration from operable deity within the ineffable, incomprehensible, and inaccessible deity without has effected the sad miscarriage of all religion, which has been the direst catastrophe of all history. He said this has been one of the worst things that's ever happened. You know, we talk about how that these catastrophes, how Hitler killed so many Jews. Terrible catastrophe in history. We don't ever talk about what we in America Hitler killed. No, that's never talked about. These are things that we call catastrophes. But he's saying right here, the worst catastrophe that's happened to humankind is this diversion of making God out yonder instead of realizing God is in here. So that you visibly manifest what God is. And we do that whether we do it for good or ill, whether we do it for right or wrong, we still do it. Because that's who we are. He says, it has come close to causing the abortion of all cultural efforts. I mean, those are powerful, strong words. To say that what we have done, what religion has done by taking God and projecting Him out there rather than where this material projects Him and says He is, which is in here, he says it's aborted so much of culture and history. It has. And if you look at it, and if you look at it with an open mind, it's very difficult to do so, you'll begin to realize that what we have done, and I include myself in we, saying that I am a Christian, and I get to the point I don't even like to associate myself with that terminology. It's not that it's a wrong terminology, it's what it has done for 1,800 years by murdering, by pillaging, by raping, by plundering humanity.
The comment that was made there about what it did to cultures, you've been talking a lot lately about the Native Americans. The Native Americans, for the most part, not all tribes, for the most part, were matriarchal.
Oh yeah, still are.
But here's the interesting part of it. The chief was a male, but he had to be from her bloodline. Therefore, you had the male-female aspect. Well, Christianity, religion, wanted you to think patriarchal. So they had to destroy that culture. And that's what they were wanting to do, not convert it. They were indeed wanting to destroy it.
Yeah, they did. They did everything they could to destroy it. Let me read you a little bit more from Alvin Boyd Kuhn. That the sublime wisdom embodied in Greek myth and Bible allegory is still uninterpreted by the mind of the West to this day, will prove to be the weightiest indictment of ignorance that history will present against the Christian civilization as of this age. Them some heavy-duty words. Them some heavy-duty words. But if you stand back and you will openly look at it with an open mind. I saw someone post a group of Indians somewhere out in the Midwest. They're still fighting over something over there, which they are right, but this one lady, this Indian lady was speaking in front of an audience or was answering questions to the media about what they were protesting. And she finally had to tell this one lady, just stop. And then finally she just asked this one prominent TV announcer, just asked her to completely remove herself from the room. They would not dialogue with her with that television announcer's attitude and what they were trying to say. And I didn't blame the Indian lady at all. I thought, you go right ahead. It's almost like Donald Trump, some of the things that he does. But either way, let me read you some more. The Bible and theology hold the truth of life. Yet even their exponents do not themselves know what that truth is. See, it's just exactly why I just said what I said about what I read. That should be a song. What I said about what I read. Even though it reads in this fashion and we read it in this fashion, we hadn't got a clue what it said. We know for a fact it's not talking about the earth being created 6,000 years ago or 7,000 years ago. We know that for a fact anymore because there's too much scientific evidence to say that the earth is millions of years old. And obviously it has had people living on it for long, long periods of time. Let me read you a little bit more. The Bible and theology as well as mythology were formulated to preserve a covert meaning, which was once the essence of all religion and philosophical endeavor, which slipped through the hands of ignorance at an early century. In other words, it happened somewhere around 170 to 325 when the ignorance was solidified in what was called the Nicene Creed and the Catholic Church. He says, it slipped through the hands of ignorance at an early century and has been lost to common knowledge. The modern world is thus left in this ridiculous position of clasping to its heart a traditional treasure which it prizes for its outward appearance, but has not the slightest idea of its true worth. I mean, I read that and it just almost makes me want to run and shout. Just I can remember Brother Hagin one time getting so excited in the meeting, talking about faith and how this and that. You just get so pumped up and excited. That's what this does to me. It gets me so excited because I see what he's saying. And I realize that not a lot of people can see it because we have been so traditionally brainwashed to look at this as a history lesson or as something that's a literal document when it's not. It's a lesson in mystery. And when I put something like this glyph up on the board, Elohim, I say this is a mysterious glyph. I want you and me to learn to read it and see what it says so that I can know that it's not out there, it's in here. And if I know that it's in here, then I know the power in which I possess. And that's what's so exciting to me, is to know that power. And I know then I have the true worth of it. He goes on and he says, having received the shell of truth without the living kernel, the present age is trying to feed itself on husk. And there is no nutrient and no nourishment in it. Do you realize there are many nations in the world that will not even allow their children to eat the very most popular foods that our kids eat for breakfast, which is cereal. A lot of it is just husk, has no nutrient value whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's not good for you, it's bad for you. It's almost like eating poison. So much is the truth with much of our food, if not the biggest majority of it, sad to say. So we're going to all have to learn to go. We're going to have to go back to farming. We're going to have to grow it ourselves if we want to get nourished and live to be like we're supposed to be. I mean, you know. So he says, having received the shell of truth without the living kernel, the present age is trying to feed itself on husk, in which no intricate nourishment is found. The West has rejected the aspect of ancient presentation, which is the truth. And the ancient way was actually to look at it as a mythological book, and that's what I'm trying to get us to do and to see is the mysteries in it, the mysteries which are phenomenal. Okay, I could just go on and read from him, which I want to read something here in a minute from him, but let me get back over here to where I was at. Back on my notes. I've lost my notes here. Okay. Let me get you, if you have your Bible now, if you want to look with me, I want you to see this. There's so many things I want you to see. Number one, I broke this down last week. Shin Mem, Yod, final Mem. These have to be characterized. This is called a final Mem. It has a 600 value. This is called a Mem. It has a 40 value. So even though they have similarities many times when you see them in print, if you are not paying attention to them, you can see 40 and 600 in value is a lot of difference, right? Absolutely, yes. And so therefore, in the Hebrew code, there's a phenomenal difference in the value of these two glyphs, even though they sound like Mem. Both of them sound like Mem. That's how they're pronounced, M-E-M, Mem. And but they're different. But this one word, or two words, actually this is two glyphs, that's generally looks like this in print, okay? It's generally that way in print as one word, and that word is heaven. And actually the word means, it means waters above and waters below. Now those first 8 verses I just read you, that's the context of those verses. That's how it ended up. The waters above and the waters below. It starts out that way in the first verse too. When it uses this word, translates this glib, Shin Mem Yod Mem, for this word heaven. Immediately when you read that in the beginning, heaven, you was already projected out yonder somewhere. I mean, weren't you? I mean, you just like a rocket took off way out yonder, and that's where God was at in your ideology. That is not what the introduction is about. If you miss the introduction, you sure as hell ain't gonna get the rest of the picture. You missed it. So what happened right out of the starting gate? Instead of running to first base, we took off outfield somewhere. You cannot ever get back to home plate. You see what I'm saying? So we start out, just like he said, we start out with the wrong idea, the wrong concept of everything. Well, I tell you, if they've got heaven projected out there and that's wrong, I will guarantee you earth is wrong. The whole idea of the glip behind earth, that's a whole different picture than this one right here. When you start to see it, waters above and waters below. Are the waters split? Well, of course they did. That's the big story of Moses, isn't it? Every one of you, the same thing that's happened right here in Genesis 1 is the same thing told to us in Exodus 14 about the story of Moses, because the story of Moses' name, Moses, Mem, Shin, Mem, Moses. Moshe, that's how his name is pronounced in Hebrew. Moshe. Do you know what it means? Drawn up out of water. Do you know what you are? Drawn up out of water. Everything in you, I've been listening to Bruce Lipton. He's just got me so fired up and turned on. He showed me now every cell in your body, you're made up of 50 trillion cells. Every cell in your body has a membrane. And do you know what that membrane is made up of? Water. It is a water vessel. That makes you 70 to 80% water, which is your lymph node system, and then another 20% blood, which is the salt water, which is the waters below. So you have 2 waters flowing in your body, the waters above and the waters below. You have a tree of life, which is the blood that pumps through your physical body, and then you have the tree of clear water, the waters of your neurological, electrical system that goes from the tip of your toe to the hairs, very hairs, and into your head. And you have these waters above and the waters below that make up you. All this equals you. This is the introduction of the miracle of the mystery of who you are. And we don't get this in Christianity. Do you know why? We're too busy trying to get everybody saved so they don't go to hell. In other words, we're too busy trying to get something to happen to them that's already happened to them so that they don't go somewhere that don't exist.
That's right.
Now I remember when I first started pastoring some 36, 37 years ago, I never could understand the concept of hell. The reason I couldn't was I had children and I wanted the best for my children, and I couldn't see or foresee them doing anything that would cause me to build a big bonfire and tie them to it and burn them. I just couldn't grasp that. So I left that alone. I remember one time we went over here in the mountains to, back then they called it, what do they call it? Here they call it homecoming. Over there they called it decoration.
Yeah.
And what they did over there on decoration was everybody come once a year and they decorated the graves. They decorated the graves, honoring the dead. And so everybody that had somebody that died, was dead, buried in that place, well, had a great big dinner on the ground. And they always had this real special preacher come and preach, and then he would all do that, and everybody get saved again. And we go eat. And after that, we go look at everybody, well, there's where old Joe was. Well, wasn't it? Yeah, you know how it goes. I mean, Marvin, you understand. What did y'all call it? Homecoming or decorating?
Homecoming.
Well, they call it decoration. Well, we went up there, and this old preacher, he had to be 90. You know, he just barely could make it up there in the pulpit. Couldn't read, but got up there, and boy, he went, help me, he would hammer her out. Just, hacking, that's what they call hacking. And I'm sitting there thinking, and at that time, I was just starting to preach a little, and I made an announcement that I was going to be preaching, and my mother laughed at that. She said, I got you out of jail too many times. I know better than that. You ain't gonna be no preacher. And so I was trying to prepare for that. Well, this guy, I thought we were gonna have to raise him from the dead because he hyperventilated himself, I thought. And he's old anyway. He was old back then. He ain't old now. Old takes different perspectives at different places. You understand what I'm saying? And so, at the end, some of the family come to me and I said, Lynn, you need to pay attention to him and model after him. If you can learn to preach like that, then you'll really be doing something. I said, well, what did he say? Well, I don't know, but it was good. And I said, I didn't understand the word he said. Nobody else understood the word he said. But they said that was good. So you know what I did? I would come home, I would go out in the woods, and I would hack. I tried to learn how to do that. I couldn't do it. Maybe it's because the squirrels all got scared and run off. I don't know. I lost my audience. I couldn't get it. Yeah, the squirrels ran us took off. So I didn't learn to preach like that. But anyway, some do, and some do the best they can with it. Whatever. All right. This I realize this is such a controversial, hard to grasp concept and idea. Heaven, not out there. Heaven's here. And, if I draw my stickman up here, I would say heaven is the center point of the heart up here to the crown, the chakra. And earth is the center part of the heart down here to the feet, or to the root chakra. I mean, that's how I would describe it, just to try to, and you can take that, I can actually take that and put that into biblical stories. All kinds of biblical stories that are conveying the exact same thing, but they aren't talking about an earth manger or a heaven out there. It's talking about the physical body. So everything that's being said here in Genesis chapter 1, all the way through the rest of the book, is about the physical body. It's about the temple that God's building. This is what he's talking about. We're building a place for God to live in, a place for God to move in, and that place is you. And so when I read this and I don't grasp the meaning of what it's saying, and I project it out there, I lost it. I didn't get it. And I don't realize the power I have as a godling. Godlings. Okay? All right, let me read this. I wrote this. This is a two-part thing I wrote a few months back and more this morning. Within the physical body, there are two main functions that life and mobilize the human body. Number one is the heart, the circular system, which gives you your natural material substance. And how many of you know, all you got to do is Google this or look at it, that when you look at the salt water, that salt water and saline solution, that if you go in a hospital and your blood's low and they put you on saline solution, that's what saline solution is. Right. But they don't put you on fresh water or rainwater. Do you know that? They don't put rainwater, but if you drink rainwater through the mouth, it'll nourish you and it'll keep you hydrated and it'll actually keep you healthy. But if you drink salt water, too much salt water, if you are restricted out in the sea somewhere, it'll kill you. Why? Because your blood and your veins and your arteries don't mix with the lymph node system in your physical body. But they are mingled, coagulated together in your body. The waters above and the waters below are commingled to make your body work and function. So everything I'm talking about here in Genesis 1 is medically, analogically referring to you. Okay? And I realize that's difficult, but that's just the way it is. All right, here we go. Let me show you something about the word for blood. Okay, I'm talking about the two different systems: salt water, rainwater, your blood, your artery system, and your nerve, your lymph node system. Now, if I take the Hebrew word for blood, that would look real pretty if I do it in red, wouldn't it? Okay, blood. And I took the Hebrew word for blood, I would use the dalit and the final meal, this one. You notice this is a 600, that's called blood. And then if I took the word Adam, now see, you think that's a man, but it's referring to human. In other words, women too. It's referring to the children of God. So if I took this word right here, in the beginning, in Hebrew, Barashit, Elohim, if I took the word created is bara. Bar. Sometimes you can hear people say Bar Joseph or Ben Joseph. Bar or Ben. Say the same thing. Actually, it means son of. In Hebrew, that means son of. So bar, if I took that word created, it's the Hebrew bara, it means son or child of. You follow that? Child of. So if I took the Hebrew word Adam, now watch this. That's this lip right here. That's number one. That's always referring to this right here, God, universe, source, all, energy, etc. Look at that. The name of Adam actually is Aleph Dam. Actually, you say it's the blood of God. So what's inside you? It's the blood of God. It tells you in Leviticus it's the last source of everything. Doesn't it tell you that? So he says, let me just read you this. The heart, the circular system, pushes and pulls the miracle substance we call blood. When we add the Aleph to it, we get the word Adam, or humankind. Then the nerve system being that supernatural divine essence of our being, which the brain and the entire nervous system are, in other words, the tree of the knowledge of right and left, called good, tov, and ra, left, evil. Evil was a wrong word to use there, obviously. The tree of the knowledge of right and left, thus Genesis 2:7 has to be understood in a totally different light, or a totally different understanding. So when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the combination of the waters above and the waters below, i.e. heaven being you. Then that becomes you. So Genesis 1:3, look at it with me. Genesis 1:3. It says, and God said, let there be light. Let there be light. It's the Hebrew word or. Or. Aleph, Wav, Resh. Aleph, Wav, Resh. That's the Hebrew word or hour. And so actually it just means energy. That's God. Okay, that's God. Energy, source, all. It means energy. That's the wall. That's number 6, and that's number 200. That's the rash, fire. So actually it means light or energy in motion. Well, that's what you are. You're light, you're energy in motion. That's exactly what your heart's doing. Every time it pumps, every time it thumps, every time it beats, every time it's doing that, that's what's happening. And he says right here, verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Verse 4, and God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided. You see that word divided? It's badal, Hebrew badal. And I'm just trying to give you these words. I know it's too much, I know it's a lot, but this word means to distinguish or to sever out. Now, hold your place right here with me and go with me to the book of Exodus, chapter 14. I've talked about that. I want you to see this real quickly. Try to bring this around here full circle. Exodus chapter. These are stories I know that all of you are familiar with, and I know you've read these stories and heard these stories, just not in this connection or in this light. Okay. Look at verse 16, chapter 14, Exodus 14:16. This is a story that you're very familiar with. If you've ever seen that movie, I think, what do they call that movie? 10 Commandments? Verse 16 says, but lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. You see the word divide? Okay? That's bakol. Bakol. Now over here, this word divide is badal. Bakol. Look down at verse 21. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back in strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry, and the waters were divided. Everybody see that? And the waters were divided. Bakol. Actually, it means to open like a how can I say that? I mean, the only way I can say it is I'm not trying to say this to be vulgar. It's to open it just exactly like the yawning. I use that word. It's just exactly like a woman when she opens her womb. She's not violated, she opens her womb. That has to be an act of trust. That's what this word is implying. There is an opening of the womb. Why is that? The way this word is talking about. Why do they use that word divided? Why do they use that Hebrew, bakol? That word is actually talking about being impregnated. These waters, when they're opened up, they become impregnated. They become a catalyst. They become a womb that receives a seed that grows something. So when you open the waters above and the waters below, you open yourself up, then you can receive something. That seed is there to grow you or to grow something through you. You understand what I'm saying? And it does. And then many times we're growing things through us we don't want, don't we? I do. I'm talking to me. I do that. And yet the scriptures are constantly giving me these impressions, these medical terminologies that I haven't learned how or didn't know how to read or to extract. And now I'm beginning to learn. I'm beginning to see them. I'm beginning to be able to read them. Okay. The Hebrew word right here for water, I want you to see this. The Hebrew word for water is mem yod mem. That's the Hebrew word for water. It's called if I wrote heaven right here, if I took this glyph right here, I hope you get this connection. Look at this. If I took this glyph, you see that? See, the only way that you get the word heaven is just add the Hebrew sheen to the word water. So when Moses is splitting the water, is he splitting heaven? Yes. He's dividing. He's the womb. He's showing the womb to be opened up. Why does the womb open up? It opens up to receive a seed. That's the purpose that it opens. That's what he's taught. That's why it says divided. That's what that word divided means. That's what it's referring to. It divides it. It opens it up. All right. Now I'm going to close with this right here, an Allen Boyd Coons, and then I'm going to draw some more things here on the board, and I want you to see this. I ain't got no room to draw that. Oh, I need to leave that on there because I want you to see this. It's going to be awful. I wanted it bigger. That's the symbol with the monad. That's the cardinal cross. That's the astrological wheel. That's the womb of your mother. Put your head, your shoulders, your arms in there. You know, your hips, your pelvic, your head, your feet, the fishes. You got the two fishes. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to tell you that's the astrological wheel. The astrological wheel, everything in Scripture is written on top of it. It starts out being written on top of this astrological wheel. You might not know that because the reason I'm saying it starts out top about because these are the waters above. These are the waters below. This is the spirit. This is matter, or the body. This is heaven. You call this earth or hell. This is up, this is below. I mean, you understand this equilibrium, equator, equal, mark, the cross. Okay, all of those things. You see all those things? And here's another place I can do this. I can say that this is Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, which got translated Jehovah. But it's the Hebrew glyphs, Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. Those four gases create a physical body. So all of that is there. And if you understand that, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I want to show you 5 and 6 and 7. But let me read you something real quick. On its downward arc, the wave loses characterization as spirit to win definition as matter. And what he's referring to here when he talks about on its downward arc, he's talking about how this is the spirit that rises to the highest point. That's June the 21st. That's the hottest day. That's the longest day. It is the longest day. And then it begins to descend till it reaches the equal point, which the days equal 12 hours and 12 hours, September the 21st. Then it goes to its lowest point, which is December the 21st. And then from December the 21st, this is talking about the sun, the source of life energy. From December the 21st, for 3.5 days, it stays, and the days don't change. It stays what they call stagnant. In other words, stagnant being at its lowest point. That's the lowest place it can go. And then it starts its upward climb. It's beginning to come back up. All right? Gosh, that's a lot. So, on its downward arc, the wave loses characterization as spirit to win definition as matter. The light of spirit has been dimmed and almost extinguished by the darkness of matter. I hope you can hear the correlation between this and Genesis 1, the first 8 verses that I just read about light and darkness. About them being divided. The middle point. The middle point, the division. This is the pelvic, the womb. That's what this is. There's the place of balance, the place of birthing. The scales, it's called the scales of justice. That's a real poor terminology because that throws us off. It doesn't do it very good. Okay. The light of spirit has been dimmed and almost extinguished by the darkness of matter. Spirit is then buried deepest in the night of material obscuration. At the lowest point of its enfeeblement, it could be said to stand at the winter solstice every year. Okay? So he goes on and he says, but at the birth and the growth of the soul, the Messiah is born in the winter or material solstice of evolution, in the pool or the point of stagnation. For here, this is why that the story of Jesus is the story of the manger in the wintertime, because it's referring to the lowest point, the lowest place. So the typology of that story, you can start to see the typology of that story. And so he says, for the soul is weighed and tested in the opposing values of spirit matter, the scales of cosmic balance. This is one of those great truths which were lost when the mystery schools, the temples, and the Platonic academies were summarily closed by fanaticism bred of ignorance. It is the great truth essential of the interpretation of the nativity symbol. The Christ would be born at the December solstice or the Christmas time of evolution, and would come to life and would venture and go upward back to where it began. So it's referring to you and me. Every bit of this is referring to you and me in Genesis 1 through 8, and I want to take the next whatever time, and I want to extract both this glip, heaven, and then the glip that's for earth, and to show you earth is not referring to just the terra firma that we stand on. It's used that way, but it's referring to the physical body, that we are these earthen vessels. This is the place where this is all worked out. And it's in this place of the physical body that we learn the customs. And those customs, that's another word that I could use for the word earth, would be customs. We learn the customs of the waters above and the waters below. We learn the strengths of our nature from above and the weakness of our nature from below. You have them, but if you learn them and you learn that you're the master of your ship, ain't nobody else the master of your ship, period. You're the master of your ship, and you conduct your ship in all kinds of weather, all kinds of storm, all kinds of bliss. You are the one that's doing that. There's nobody else can do that for you. If you don't do it, you're like a ship that's driven by the winds of time, here, there, to, and fro. Don't we? Bump into this and bump into that. Not because we're not special, not because we're not divine, not because we don't have God in us. It's because we don't know. Because we just kept ignorant. We just kept in that place where we kept ignorant. But if we wake up and open our eyes, we begin to see. And then as we begin to see, we can say, oh, I see that. I can see that clearly now. And when we do, hallelujah. Boy, I'm going to quit right there. I have too much more. Too much. I wanted to show you.
Don't you say that every week?
Yeah.
So is that in any way related to the great year?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be the same thing, because the great year is divided into 4 sections, you know, and just like in Daniel, when Daniel, he talks about the great year, he had that dream, And in his dream, he said, I saw his head was gold. Gold in the great year is the longest period of time during that 25,690 years. I think the gold period of time is over half of it, or somewhere in that neighborhood. And then silver makes up another third, and then brass, and then finally clay makes up a very short period of time. And many who speculate that that great year is something that's just happened to us, many speculate that we have just come out of the time of clay, that we're entering back into the golden year, the golden age, the golden period of time. Now, I don't know that, but
Sounds good, let's do
It
it.
feels that way, you know.
Well, when you get done doing that, how many lines is it gonna be?
there'll be 7. There won't be any more lines, it'll just be 7. There will just simply be 7 facets of it.
Well, that's the gold, the silver, the bronze, the iron, back to bronze, back to silver, back to gold. That's 7.
There you go. Here's what I would do with it. I would come up here. That's the highest point. I'd come down here. That's the lowest point, and numerically, that works out beautiful because 6, the number 6 refers to man in general, not human. I mean, not male, but human, male and female. And so to simply say the physical body as a low, slow vibration of spirit is the lowest point that God could come. You say, well, he could go and live in a rock. Because the scripture says that if you don't cry out and you don't worship, that even the rocks will cry out. Why? Because they have God in them. But man is also called a beast, so he can come. If he just lives down here at the lowest point of his physical being, he's bestial. Acts like a beast. And you look at religion, many times the religion is based off bestiality. If they don't believe like us, if they don't think like us, then to hell with them. Let them burn, kill them, get rid of them. They're no good. That's about as bestial as you can get. Survival of the fittest. That was the part, half of the title of Darwin's book that he wrote, 1859, Survival of the Fittest. And that should have been Survival of the Fittest, comma. In other words, that's just a piece of the title. The rest of the title was about the, how did it go? It just slipped my mind. It's something about the elite or the strong. The book was basically about the strong win over destroying the weak. Thus, we got most of our ideas of competition from that. I'll beat you because I'm stronger, better, faster. So put the weak down. The old, the weak, let them die. Get rid of them. That's the mindset behind that. And that should be if you are supposedly a Christian, I mean a real, going back 2,000 years ago, with the idea of not as a special elite people, but as somebody who understands that this lives in me, I should have compassion for the weak. I should assist the weak. I should love the weak. I should help the weak, not kill them, not put them down. But that whole idea, that's where that mentality anyway. And then number 7, I put right here. So if I drew my stick man, that would be number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Divide my heart. The place of balance. The place to bring them both together.
Which, when you go back to Genesis and it talks about the midst of the garden, it is talking about that center chakra.
In the middle place.
Center.
The
It
heart.
talks about the 4 rivers doing that. That's where they all came together and crossed. That's your endocrine glands and the way they flow through you.
Right.
That's the green energy of the heart chakra, which is the center of the garden, the center of you.
That's what,
All of it, you're right, all of it.
that's what,
But all of nature is talking about us. Look at a rainbow. It's those 7 colors of the chakra. It's teaching us about us. There's 7 colors. There's 7 seas. There's 7 continents. There's 7 bass notes in the scale. There's more notes, but the bass notes of the musical scale, there's 7. To vibrate, it's all us, and that's 7.
everything is based in the 7. That's why Genesis 1 and 2 through verse 4 has the 7 yawns, or what we call 7 days. These are the 7 yawns. Yawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yawn simply means facet of life, translated day. So what did he do on day 1 and day 2? If you look at what he did on day 1 and day 2, it all had to do with waters. Every bit of it. The waters above and the waters below, the waters above, the waters below, and the division between them. What's the division? It's where the yoni opens up to be impregnated. It's that place where we come to open to truth, that we become impregnated by that truth. Can we be impregnated by falsehood, a lie? Yes. Is much of our life built off that kind of impregnation? Yes. That's why it creates so much chaos. Do we mean to do that? No. I don't think anyone, there might be a very, very few that would purposefully do that, but I think the majority of people do that out of ignorance, out of not knowing what they are doing or have done. So yeah, Genesis 1, 2, and 3, to get it correctly, would be the building of the tabernacle, and then it being stood and erect and out mobile would be Genesis 4 through the rest of the book. So all the characters, and this is the bizarre part, all of those characters represent organs, functions, happenings in your physical body. Just like we talked about 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Canaanites, all of those ites represent different functions in your physical body, different cells that are either in dire stress and send a whole regiment of other cells to that particular area of the body to assist you. Like if you get sick or you have a problem or you have a fever or whatever. Those are all the stories that are there. If we could learn to look at it that way, we would begin to learn how the body is supposed to function and how it's supposed to work.